Hey, what's going on, everybody? You are now tuned in to the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast, where we talk about all things related to Black mental health, the culture, faith, and everything else in between. Listen, y'all, I'm so excited today because I have my friends Joe and Eris from the LA Report podcast. Fellas, say what's up to the listeners.
What's going on, everybody?
How y'all doing?
Thank y'all for having us. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Listen, I've been waiting to have y'all on the podcast ever since we met. Y'all know I'm new to DC. So when I met these brothers, I was like, you know what? They a vibe. They got to come through to the podcast. So I'm glad we were able to make it happen. Like,
definitely. I've waiting for this for a while now. So I'm definitely glad to be here. And,
Yeah, we're excited to join the show. Like I said, you know, when we first had the opportunity to connect, it was definitely a vibe. So we are so happy to be here and looking forward to having a great conversation.
Listen, let's get into it then. Y'all ready?
Let's get it.
All right. So first things first, I want y'all to introduce yourselves. Let us know who you are, what makes you you, and then kind of going into the podcast, like how y'all started that.
All right. Go ahead, Lenjo. You can go.
All right. So, yes, my name is Lenjo Kilo. I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland, from the D.C. area. I went to undergrad at University of D.C. After that, I ended up playing pro basketball for a few years. And now I made a shift, and now I work in healthcare. I'm an administrative fellow at the Mount Sinai Hospital. And it's kind of funny because the podcast is really Eris' idea. Eris had been bugging me for like 3-4 years before we ever even got it started. So, you know, Eris owes all the credit for getting this podcast going. And, you know, now we're here. So,
okay, Eris.
This guy's a modest guy. Well, like I said, I appreciate being here. My name is Eris Morrison. I'm from DC, Southeast, born and raised. Pretty much, I work in accounting, finance right now. I'm a payroll manager for a tech company. A little bit about myself, man. I've done everything you probably can do in DC. I did sales. I worked on the consulting and lobbying, a little bit of everything. And so now find myself in finance. A little bit about our podcast, as Lenjo said. I actually have a lot of thoughts that pop into my head that provoke conversations, and so I always have thought that a podcast would be a great forum, obviously, to get some of those thoughts off, and no other person than my brother here to kind of have those conversations with. And I thought that would be a meaningful aspect to talk about a few things. So as he's tried to say, like, this is my idea, but like he's a modest guy. We discussed it. I tried to get him on board for 2 years. He lucky he came on when he did, because I was going to go solo. I was about to be solo. But he joined right in time. And, you know, like a lot of people, I'm sure, the pandemic gave us an opportunity to, you know, really set aside some time and, you know, get it started.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and the whole idea around our podcast was, you know, to shed light on Black men differently than what we had seen on social media or TV, et cetera. Like, we wanted to like revolutionize Black masculinity and talk about a variety of topics, not just sports or music, you know, but politics, religion, sex, like things that are almost taboo amongst Black men. We wanted to like bring it out. So, you know, that's the whole theme of our podcast is to have important and authentic conversations. So, you know, definitely check us out when you get a chance.
Listen, and y'all, that's the LA Report podcast. So make sure y'all check these brothers out. Revolutionizing masculinity. I want to get into that, but first I gotta come for Eris. I gotta come at your neck. I didn't know we was neighbors. Like, you live in Southeast, I live in Southeast. Like, what?
Oh, I am off of like Wheeler Road. I'm like in the trenches a little bit. Not I'm in the trenches, but like the trenches where, you know, you can be walking around, you'd be like, oh, this is nice. I'm in Southeast. You're like, oh, I don't even know what's up. But yeah, that's where I stay off of.
Okay. So I'm new to Southeast, so I don't even know where Wheeler Street is. I just know where my apartment is and just a few other surrounding areas. But going back to what Lenjo was saying, so Lenjo, you talked about like revolutionizing this concept of masculinity. Talk to me more about that. Like, why is that important, and what does that mean?
Yeah, it's important to us because, you know, as we see in, like I said, on social media, TV, there's this like buzzword or buzzwords of toxic masculinity. And we wanted to show a light that you can still be firm and be masculine and not offend anyone or not make anyone feel any kind of way because you have a certain kind of stance. You feel what I'm saying? So we want to bring a certain kind of I don't want to say authoritative like opinions, but we wanted to show people that we can stand firm and be masculine and still talk about our emotions, still talk about things that may be near and dear to our hearts without having to be, you know, I don't want to say super effeminate, but in a way that can come across as authentic to other men that hold our same views or hold our same values. So
Right.
that was the entire premise for our podcast.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of tag on to that. You know, all credit due to Lenjo. He came up with the tagline "Revolutionizing Black Masculinity," and to his point, you know, a lot of it really is just being, you know, conscious and authentic with your conversation that we have. You know, kind of what he said as far as we don't know who you might offend, but it's just about, like, to his point, standing firm and at least being conscious of all different aspects of conversation to be able to actually hopefully have more of a learning experience through the dialogue versus, just talking just to talk and, you know, not being able to hear one another. So that's kind of the idea in a nutshell behind the tagline of the podcast and some of the conversations that we try to engage in, not just between ourselves, but our guests as well.
I think that concept is so interesting, and I want to hear more about that because you're right. Like we often hear about like toxic masculinity, and just talking about it from that lens of just having a negative connotation surrounding masculinity and what it is. And I'm wondering for y'all, like y'all are emphasizing Black masculinity. So why is that important to y'all to highlight like this concept of Black masculinity and revolutionizing that? So like, do y'all feel like there's been an attack on like Black masculinity?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
110%, 110%. You know, it's almost as if when Black men, you know, stand firm in their masculinity, it's looked as though it's a threat. You know, and it kind of makes people feel uncomfortable. You feel what I'm saying? Even for myself, I'm a bigger individual. I'm like 6'7". So when I walk into different spaces, I can feel how people look at me. You know, and as I was young and coming up, I was a little bit shy about, you know, not trying to make people feel uncomfortable. But then when I got to a certain age, I was like, you know what? I'm just me. And if you feel uncomfortable about it, we can talk about it and we can find ways to have a middle ground, but I'm not going to dim my light just to make you feel comfortable. So that was kind of the thought process. Like, dang, how many men or Black men in particular have these same thoughts where I can't go into a grocery store, I can go into the workplace, or even at home with, you know, your lady or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you make people feel uncomfortable, and does that play on your mind? So trying to bring some of those topics to light and, you know, like I said, have those honest and authentic dialogue so that we can all get on the same page and, you know, move forward in the right pace, you know.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, to that point, you know, so many folks try to define, you know, to what we said about, so many folks try to define what actual Black masculinity is or what masculinity should be and how Black men should operate within that, you know. And to Lenjo's bigger point, you know, acceptance of yourself is the biggest thing. And so as Black men, we taught to be hard and, you know, not to show emotions and do things of that nature. So part of the podcast is, again, like tapping into those deeper conversations that bring out some of those emotions, bring out some of that that raw feeling that causes us to kind of delve deeper into a conversation that actually pull out what are you feeling, expressing yourself in that way, as opposed to, you know, holding things in and not being able to let out, you know, again, conscious, authentic thought, if you will.
I love where this conversation is going because I'm kind of like going off the script a little bit. Okay, so and I do that a lot, so y'all gonna get used to it.
No worries.
So y'all are talking about this concept of masculinity, and we're bringing up the idea of emotions. And I love that because when we talk about masculinity, and like y'all said, there's often this idea or this prototype of masculinity meaning firm or hard, and being stoic, not showing emotion. And to me, like it sounds like y'all are saying the contrary. So like what is that balance between like vulnerability and allowing yourself to experience emotion as a Black man and, you know, being masculine? What does that look like? What does that dance look like?
And I think it starts with self-awareness.
Okay.
And that's something that's very difficult for, actually, you know what's crazy? I think everyone's self-aware. I think people are really at your basic level, you know how you feel. It's just a matter of whether you want to accept that's how you feel, and to actually, delve deeper into that, challenge yourself to like ask yourself those type of questions. So I think when you talk about that dance, it's more so being able to be aware and like deal with situations as they come. Because I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and say, like, to your point, sometimes, being masculine to some capacity is putting on that front, that stoicness, that firmness, that hardness. I mean, like you said, there's a real balance at play there. But I do think, when the self-awareness kicks in, you're able to, in certain situations, switch off that side and actually go into a side that does, make you more emotional and tapping into that to be able to express oneself. And I think, again, like, it's very important because that's who we are. I mean, as human beings in general, whether you male or female, we're emotional beings. So you got to be able to tap into that side. But I'll let Lenjo kind of continue off of that point.
Yeah, I think Eris hit the nail on the head with the point about being self-aware. I think, even to take that even a step further in regards to being self-aware is like you almost have to accept rejection in a sense, right? Where it's like, I know how I feel and I'm going to say it in a way that I think you can hear me. But even if you don't accept what I say, even if you don't understand how I feel, I'm still comfortable enough to say, you know what, I got it off my chest. Yeah. And I think the water gets a bit muddy when it comes to how masculine men want to express themselves, because they're worried about how they're going to affect the next person, or I guess not to offend the next person or make them feel any kind of way. But one thing that I try to tell myself, or try to tell kids that I mentor, is like, you have to get to a point where accept the rejection up front. Like, it's how you feel. The next person may not agree with it, and that's okay. I think a lot of people get caught up in I wonder if it's okay for me to say how I feel, or et cetera, and you end up holding things in, and then it comes out in an outburst down the road, and then people looking at you like, damn, your behavior is crazy, when you could just got it off your chest maybe earlier. You understand what I'm saying? So I think accepting rejection in that kind of context can allow you to stand firm in your masculinity and also be in touch with your emotions.
Yeah. So self-awareness and accepting rejection, or like what comes with the territory of like feeling your emotions and being able to express them. Y'all brothers are smart. I love this. Okay. Can I pick on y'all a little bit?
No, go ahead.
A little bit. Okay. All right. That's why y'all here, period. Okay. Because I noticed, and the information that y'all are sharing is so helpful. I noticed that the way y'all are expressing it is like, well, you got to be self-aware. You got to be, talking to the audience, and that's great. I want to pick on y'all though. Like, has there ever been a time where, prior to like revolutionizing masculinity and getting to this point where y'all are like self-aware and accepting rejection, have you ever felt weak when you experience emotion? And like, what did that feel like for you as a man?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of this process. That's how that's like part of this doing this podcast is like therapy for us, right? Like us being able to have these conversations and share like our opinions is a way to kind of release some of those I don't even want to call them traumas, because they're not really traumas. I mean, maybe they are actually traumas, but just some of those experiences that we've had in the past. But absolutely, I think that lacking self-awareness is something that I've gone through at a very early age, to not be able to, again, I knew what I should, I knew exactly what I should have been doing or how I felt, but you push that down based upon, the energy and just the worldly view of how you should be behaving and responding to things. And so it's not until, you have to learn lesson after lesson and failure after failure, or that lesson after lesson, till you get to a point to where you're able to sit back and actually be like, okay, I have to tap into what I'm actually feeling all the way in order to bring that out. Like, I think that for sure I've lacked self-awareness in the past. And then, again, to Lenjo's point about, acceptance, is like, again, we all go as growing up in society, we all are going to be based off of like the perception of how a way that we should behave and respond to things. And so, I mean, there's a lot of instances I've allowed society to kind of shape some of the things that I've done.
The tea? What happened? What was? Give me an example.
I mean, just growing up doing some ignorant, dumb stuff. Certain things that I'm not too proud of, but like just instances where you recognize what you're doing is not leading you on the best path forward. And there's always those opportunities for you to recognize. And I'm a spiritual individual. I believe in God, so I understand that, like, when God gives you a second chance, you best not, you best recognize the opportunity at hand and not continue to, let him get your attention like that. So
yeah, sure.
That's for me.
Yeah, I appreciate your vulnerability. Go ahead, Linjo. You ain't off the hook. Go ahead, tell your story.
So yes, to answer the question, the answer is yes. There have definitely been times where I felt weak when it came to like my emotions, and it's very interesting. I would say high school going into college. For those that know me, I had a serious stutter. Like I had a serious stutter all throughout grade school, whatever the case is, and going through that process on trying to learn how to speak in the heat of the moment and not being able to, like my mind would know what to say, but my tongue would not be moved fast enough or move too fast in a sense. I would feel weak and I would feel like, let me just hide myself and not say anything. And it's kind of interesting because it's those moments where you're weak. And then, like you said before, having that self-awareness afterwards in retrospect to say, dang, these are moments where I feel weak. If this comes up again, I'm going to try to have a different response and just see what happens. You feel what I'm saying? So instead of me feeling like, go like this, let me stand firm, take a breath, and then say how I feel or say whatever's on my mind in that particular case. So I think those moments of being weak and understanding that and recognizing that gave me the opportunity to be strong now or be strong, in the future, or even to pass on some gains to someone that may be younger coming up, or someone in the age mate, whoever needs some encouragement or needs some advice. I have the experience that I've been through that I can share and then help someone else down the line. So I think in a nutshell, these moments wherever men or people in general feel weak about something or feel like their emotions are putting them in a weird place, I would encourage everyone to try to think of it as an opportunity to grow, number one, an opportunity to then help someone else grow. That's the whole point of us being here as people, is to help each other grow, learn, and apply different information to new experiences down the road.
Yeah, and I just want to commend both of you because I feel like y'all are doing that now, like helping people to grow, which is the reason why I directly asked y'all that question. I wanted y'all to share a bit more because I strongly feel like, Black men who are going to listen to this episode are probably experiencing that, like experiencing some level of vulnerability or weakness and not knowing how to navigate it, not knowing how to handle it. So, as a Black woman, I definitely want to say I appreciate the both of you. I do feel as though in this country, Black men are socialized to, like y'all said, to be strong and to identify with this persona of just being like strong and Black or what have you. Not saying that we're not resilient, not saying that we're not a people that have overcome things, but saying that we got to be strong. We can't show emotion or what have you. And so that leads me to my question of like, is it important to have some sort of, for Black men specifically, to have some sort of example of other Black men in your life who do express emotion, who can kind of experience that?
Yes. Bottom line, yes, it is it is very important to have examples on, other Black men expressing their emotion, because that's how we learn as people. We learn through examples, and especially, for Black men, like having other positive male role models or even figures that you may not know, but taking some of their things that they've shared to the public and apply it to your life. Because the number one thing with information that we gain is try to apply it. If you don't apply information, it's useless, in my opinion. So, being able to use those examples is very key on giving you a blueprint or a roadmap on how you can behave in certain situations when they arise in your life. So definitely, those are very, very important to have examples, like top tier importance for sure.
Okay. And who was your example?
I have plenty. First, I would say my Uncle Larry. Shout out to him. My mentor, Rick Goins, and his father, Big Rick Goins. Let's see, my fourth grade teacher, Mr. Thompson. My sixth grade PE teacher, Mr. Kemp. Who else would I say? My football coach, Coach Harris. My basketball coach at UDC, his name is Coach Mike Riley. My coach at Savannah State, Horace Brownex. My AAU coach, Coach Black. Who else? I have so many people I can name, but those people right there for sure.
Yeah.
Given me a lot of game and giving me, and even they probably don't even know, or they're not even aware that I've been watching them and seeing how they respond to everything. And I've been taking some of their stuff and adding it to my life. So I'm definitely very grateful for those men, and also all my frat brothers in Omicron Gamma, of course. Like the whole OG chapter has plenty of men that are good examples on how to express emotion. So there's plenty of people around me, and I'm sure about Eric too, that can have that kind of
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess, go just piggybacking off of that. I mean, that there is unquestioned a need and a desire for Black men, young Black men in specific, to have healthy role models of people that look like them, expressing their emotions in a healthy way. I mean, we see we see what happens every day when they don't have those examples, unfortunately. For myself, going just piggybacking, my father's in my life, so there's certain examples I take from him. Obviously, my grandfather had a lot to do with raising me, so I piggyback off a lot of what he's taught me. I've had one of my frat brothers who, before I was even thinking about becoming a Q, had a really dope program that I actually would like to. I'm actually working, trying to get with him to work to build something similar. It's called Men Under Construction. And what it basically did was it took like the age range of about 12 to 13-year-old males from different parts of DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And it just gave them a whole blueprint around just what life is going to look like, what you're going to have to experience. I remember us going to like the Blacks and Wax Museum. I remember we had to do like a public speaking engagement. I remember we had to do like setting a table and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Just basic tenets of like how you should talk to people, how you're going to have to talk in certain parts of America, how you should talk to young women. So it was like programs like that. Even before I even, thought about being a Q, this was like one of my frat brothers who was responsible for it, who has played a tremendous role in my life. I had a professor at UDC who I'm still in contact with, who was the business. He helped me start the entrepreneurship club, and he just navigating healthy relationships, but also expressing themselves in a way that you would want to like facilitate the next generation as well. Like for me being a mentor to other people and type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's clearly a need for like examples, whether it be me and Linjo, whether it be the people that came before us, people that's coming after us, to be able to just have conversations expressing healthy emotion. Because really, like I said, the problem is we get labeled for having and expressing the wrong types of emotion. And it's like being able for people to see that. Again, I think everything is about conversation and dialogue.
Right.
Because I mean, again, what you may feel as though is not healthy in the sense that of me expressing myself in a way that you may not understand, it might actually be healthy. It's just a matter of us having a conversation and being able to try to really have the desire to understand where each other's coming from, rather than it being like, oh, back and forth, like we just debating type stuff.
Yeah, it's okay. So it sounds like we're on this road of like talking about emotional expression and Black men. All that's great. Sounds like y'all had some amazing examples in your lives, and y'all are continuing to be examples to the next generation. But from your honest perspective, like, how do y'all feel as though us as a society, how we've handled Black men who publicly express emotion?
We trash them. We make fun of them.
Wow.
It is only recently. I mean, look, like I'll give you the biggest proponent of it. I give you two people I've kind of followed recently. One of them is actually a pretty funny guy because he's kind of wild, but he's funny as hell.
Okay.
Kevin Gates. Kevin Gates is someone who is, if people go back and kind of listen to him, he says a lot of outlandish things that catches the headlines. So that's why, and it's somewhat sometimes funny, but those are the things that catch the headlines. But like as far as someone who's who's like self-aware, who actually expresses emotions, to have some deep conversations, I recommend people go check out some of his more recent interviews, because again, people label him as a little bit crazy, a little bit aloof, but I mean, when you sit back and you actually listen to some of the content that he discusses, as far as just being aware of himself, being
Do you hear Eris or
aware of how Ooh, okay, we good. But yeah, go back and just check out some of his content. His content is pretty informative. I advise people for that. And the other one is pretty big. I guess you can check out is and everybody probably knows Will Smith, right? So
Mhm.
Will Smith is somebody who, you know, people make a lot of fun of. I think Will Smith is very self-aware of like all the situations that he goes through, and I think he expresses himself. But I think that, you know, because of the situation in which his wife Jada is involved in, you know, people look at him for being weak, and I think that, you
Mhm.
know, I just look at those as two examples of men who definitely are what I would consider self-aware and have the ability to express themselves, and yet, you know, I look at society as looking at them as being deemed weak. So I would just say that for me, those are my two.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, going back to Kevin Gates, because you was cutting in and out a little bit. Talk to me about that. So I'm not too familiar with some of the things that he says. I just saw the interview with Carisha, but like how,
Okay.
like, what are some of the things that he said and how has society trashed them?
So some of the things actually in this context, I think some like there's a most recent interview on the Breakfast Club.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, they were just having a conversation just about his mental health as well, like the importance of his mental health and just finding himself, the importance of understanding how to delve into his emotions, some of the issues that he's faced in the past. Again, being the type of person that he is, as far as where he's from, going back to that stoic, firm, hard nature that us as Black men feel like we have to put on, and then having to, as we kind of discussed a little earlier, dig deeper into why am I feeling like that, and then being able to be open and honest enough to just not just feel that for yourself, but to then again express that, you know, proudly to the masses when you are feeling like that. Because there's a lot of people, as he would say when he was talking, you know, a lot of people when he works out and stuff, people say, I appreciate you just being open. There's not a lot of people expressing themselves in that way
Yeah.
that, you know, that they look at from a rapper's perspective, obviously, to be able to break that down and make people be like, maybe I should check myself out in different respects too, to try to, you know, see if there's some deeper meaning to how I'm feeling and how I respond to things.
I low key kind of like look at men like him who kind of like publicly express their emotions and they get that backlash from society. It just came to me, but I kind of see them as like emotional martyrs, if you will. Like they're allowing themselves to express emotion, being like pretty much verbally crucified by everybody, but it also kind of displays how Black men can be vulnerable. Like
Mhm.
they're showing like that vulnerability that other Black men can kind of then model in the future.
I agree. I mean, I think that it's a trend that a lot of Black men are taking notice to. I mean, I think that the interview was profound in that respect. Like I said, some of the other stuff that goes on and what's being said is, you know, can be discussed at a different in a different time. But I do think that, you know, him and specifically like Will Smith are two strong examples of kind of, and not maybe crucified is the right word, but just kind of made fun of, kind of laughed at, kind of like pushed aside, like, oh, that's Will Smith, you know, he got Jada, you know, that's the whole thing. And then Kevin Gates, you know, he wilding. So it's just like, that's the whole thing. But from a self-awareness standpoint,
Mhm.
they have resonated with me from your question that you asked.
Y'all don't think Will Smith was verbally crucified for what he did at the Oscars?
Oh, from that standpoint, yes.
Yeah, like
Yeah, I
good.
mean, personally, I think that was warranted. Like the backlash he got was warranted. I think that was warranted. But I think what he was feeling in terms of like his emotions and trying to defend his wife, something like that, I'm in agreement with how he felt.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a fine line between how you feel and how you behave or your actions, right?
Tell
So
me
you may
more.
so you may feel threatened or feel offended, etc., because of this joke from Chris Rock, which I think was definitely distasteful. Let's get out of the way, distasteful. But does that mean you go up on stage and slap him? No. There are different ways that you can handle and let your presence be known, let your feelings be known instead of slapping him on stage. Because I felt personally that was kind of weak. I feel like if I'm not in like physical danger, I'm not gonna put my hands on anybody.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? So I think that was kind of whack from Will Smith. But outside of that, what has happened in terms of people, his backlash is like, damn, like that's kind of the consequences for your actions in a sense. So, that's why I say there's a fine line between how you're feeling and how you act. You feel what I'm saying? Like,
I agree.
Let's say for like a hypothetical, right? The two people, they're dating or whatever. The lady says something crazy to the guy. Now the guy goes out and slashes her tires or whatever the case is, something crazy like that. All because you may feel a way. Does that not mean that you slashing tires and doing all this extra stuff is okay? You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's why I say there's a fine line between how you feel and how you behave.
You know what? I 100% agree. Go ahead, Eris.
Oh no, I just wanted to say, like, going back to that Will Smith thing. I mean, you're talking about a situation where it's really like you really consider it to be him probably exhibiting some of that masculinity from I guess you can define it more toxic from the stoic, the hardness, right? Like, that was the physical assault on Chris Rock, feeling like that's what he needed to do in that moment. All the while, people don't look at the adverse of when he got on stage and accepted the award and is actually crying in tears, because I'm pretty sure like there's this emotional instability in the moment, being like, I know I shouldn't have done that. Like, there's a whole lot of emotion going on. So it's like the journey to healing and to actually, finding yourself and self-awareness is, as they say, I feel like it's a continued journey as opposed to a destination, because I feel like you just never really get there.
And I don't want to like beat a dead horse, because I feel like we've been talking about this since February, like us as a society, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, like I do feel as though like I didn't understand why the opinions were split in terms of like, was the behavior right or wrong? Because I agree, like I feel as though we can feel all the emotions that we want, but it doesn't warrant like behavioral acting out. And I think like, as going back to the conversation of masculinity, and y'all said it before, like being like the tough person or the strong person or the one that's like, willing to turn up at the drop of a dime, it doesn't mean that you're masculine, right? That's not the definition of masculinity, becoming physical with somebody. But masculinity is more so being able to, like y'all said, be aware, to be self-aware, and to experience emotion. And I don't think that, kind of going based on like his childhood, like according to the book or whatever, I don't think that Will Smith had the opportunity to experience emotional vulnerability as a kid, as well as like that self-awareness piece or whatever. And that's why like we see people when they get older, they lash out. They don't know how to experience emotion that becomes like overwhelming in situations like that.
Yeah.
No, that's a fact. I mean, and I would say this, like, for me, I meditate. So like, meditation is something that it really just forces you to sit with dealing with a lot of things. I mean, you don't have to meditate to do it, but I recommend it for folks because I think that it does help you just understand that like you can think a lot of thoughts and the goal of the meditation is not to judge yourself, because people say, hey, I'm meditating, I'm not supposed to be thinking about nothing. It's like, no, you're supposed to think, but just not let it consume you. It's like a cloud. It's just like, let it go away. So I think that, like, to your point, a lot of people, we don't really teach in our society. We don't teach our, Black men, much less anybody, to how to really sit with their emotion and to understand like how to just sit with it. Like, it's hard to sit with emotion. That's why it's got to come out somehow. And we don't teach people how to do it constructively. People don't do the things. People don't like to work out. People don't like to find healthy ways out. And then we choose the negative outcomes that we like to do. Drugs, drinking, turning up, like that's turning up is fun. But I mean, the drugs and the drinking consistently, it's a combustible situation all around.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, I agree with both of you all, and I would also say that I think our idea of being strong is like a bit skewed. I think strength is like a spectrum. You feel what I'm saying? Similar, like for those that work out, you have let's say for example, you have a bodybuilder and you have a basketball player. The bodybuilder may go in the gym and train muscle groups. The basketball player may come in the gym and train like the whole body, can call it functional, right? Both people are strong, but the way that they display it are totally different. You feel what I'm saying? I think as human beings, especially Black men, we have to be able to use discernment to see which display is most appropriate for whatever situation that we're in. You feel what I'm saying? So we're not saying always be Gandhi or always be, turn the other cheek. We're also not saying try to fight everyone and then you feel bad. You feel what I'm saying? Be able to use discernment and be able to be still. That's why Eric said, using meditation is very, very key as well, to find that stillness, because in stillness there's opportunity to think, and when you get a chance to think, you make better choices. So I think that's where people get the strength thing confused.
I love that, the concept of like finding that stillness, that still place. So Eris does it by like meditation or what have you. So Lenjo, how do you find that still space in your life so that you can kind of like feel and experience emotion?
Oh, I have so many different ways. I would say as of late, definitely been playing video games. It's
okay. How is that still though? Like you're focusing on games and stuff.
It's kind of funny though, because like whenever I'm playing games, my mind is like completely clear. I'm not even thinking about anything.
Okay.
Or like when I like work out, of course, or even like when I'm on Instagram in my story, you might even see on my page, like my story might be like 27 posts long. I'm just talking about different things in my mind. Those things give me stillness because I have an opportunity to like detach from my day-to-day responsibilities and focus on what's really in my head and like dish it out and put it in certain places and put it in different buckets here and there. So although to the ear it may say, damn, video games and working out is not really still, but for me personally, in my mind is clear as can be. So I try to always find time to sit down and do those things and give myself a clear, fresh start going into the next day.
I think those moments are so important, especially if we're going to be at this place of learning how to process our emotions, whether you're a man or a woman and you're man seeking masculinity or like female seeking, inner peace or what have you. Like it's important for us to just be aware of our emotions and to learn how to experience them, experience the discomfort that comes with it. Like all of that is important. I just want to kind of segue into a different question real quick. So I recently saw a Instagram post specifically with TD Jakes, and he was giving a sermon. In this sermon, he was basically giving examples as to why like men wouldn't feel comfortable opening up to their partners or expressing emotion. And he was basically saying like, can I trust you with this information? Can I trust you with my emotions? Men aren't going to open up until we feel safe. Which was the message that he was sending. And so I just wanted y'all's perspective, because y'all are two Black men, spokespeople for revolutionizing masculinity. So I just wanted to hear from y'all on that.
I think it's true. I think there's some serious truth to that. And I even speak on my own experiences, like having trouble in those departments in terms of like expressing myself, because in the back of my mind, I always was worried about like, dang, like, can I really be honest with how I feel? Is she going to take this a certain kind of way? Yeah. And it wasn't until like I got a bit older when I realized that, okay, yes, I can feel how I want to feel and I can get it out, but how I deliver this message has to be in a way that can click in her ears. You feel what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because I feel a way and I want to be honest with how I feel and be honest, be upfront, be transparent, as we see all these buzzwords. If I'm not communicating that in a way that they can, that my person can understand, then it's a waste. You feel what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, and that's where I found myself in a lot of frustration, because I'm like, dang, I'm being honest, I'm being transparent, I'm doing all these things that we're supposed to do, but I'm not getting the results that I want. Until I realized, dang, maybe there's a next step to really learning how to communicate and like deliver messages the right way, deliver messages that can, be heard and be received and then be applied down the road. And I think that all it takes, like we said earlier, a lot of self-awareness, being still and understanding, dang, how can I go back to the drawing board? What kind of things make her react this way? Okay, let me avoid that when I say how I feel. What makes you do this? I'm really taking the time to understand how to really communicate with your person. That way, when you do say how you feel, they can understand it and they can bounce it back to you in a way that you can understand. Y'all can move in harmony. So I think all that stuff takes work. Number one, it does take a lot of effort to really even get to that point, because a lot of things happen where like pride gets in the way, and you're like, you know what? I'll be honest. You don't understand how I feel, then whatever. Like that's on her, and that's kind of immature when you think about it. Because as you get older, companionship becomes even more important, and to keep those unions together, it requires a next gear of work, a next gear of willingness to work, willingness to put your biases, your pride, and all these things that you may hold up as a wall down, so that you and this person can connect on a level where y'all can survive 30, 40, 50 years. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Go ahead.
Right, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna take the question but change it in a bit, so you can go ahead and respond, and then I'll say my response.
Okay, I'll be real quick. I totally agree with Linjo. I think, and with what TD Jakes was saying, I think that being vulnerable is a very tough thing. No one wants to be hurt. So, just, making sure your partner and you have a relationship of where that space can exist is obviously very important. And, I've had experiences where, just like with Linjo, you don't necessarily understand the value of how vulnerability will play in your relationships, and so you want to be open and honest. And I'm one person that likes to be transparent, but that transparency can be perceived in different ways, and then that that vulnerability that it requires for you to open up and just be honest and true to yourself can cause friction, and then depending on what the actual topic is about, men always fear about having, especially if it's something that is that again will make them feel, some people might say less masculine, for whatever reason. I mean, you could just give an example. If a dude lost his job and he has to talk about that with his girl, like being vulnerable, like how does that work in the relationship, and what that means for her, what that means for him, and how that, will she use that against me down the road? That's being a side example, but you got to be able to have a relationship with somebody who or strongly feel won't come back at you in that way. And so I think TD Jakes is right. I mean, obviously, I don't think he was he's clearly not referencing all women, but I think a lot of women need to understand, just like a lot of men need to understand, that with a partner, you got to have like somebody that you look at like same way you look at, I'm sure you look at your homegirls, your sister, your anybody in your family. That's the same way you got to look at your partner. The same way you want none of them people dirty. You don't want to do nobody. You wouldn't do your partner like that dirty. And so you would keep each other's secrets, and not even just secrets, but keep each other's vulnerabilities in a safe space, so that, like Linjo said, y'all can kind of coexist and move together in harmony.
Yeah. And so like this concept of like safety, I feel like that's become a buzzword, honestly, over the past few years, where people are just saying like, oh, I gotta feel safe, I gotta feel emotionally safe, or what have you. But like, as Black men, like, what would make a Black man feel unsafe in a relationship?
It's a great question.
No, y'all the experts.
Unsafe. What would make me feel unsafe? I think what would make me feel unsafe is if my effort, or the time, effort, and compassion that I present to a relationship, if it's unappreciated. That right there undoubtedly will make me feel safe. Because I feel like, when you make a lot of sacrifices, when you make a lot of compromises under the theme of love, under the theme of companionship, partnership, relationship, and when those things go unnoticed, or when those things go unnoticed, it makes you feel away, because it's like, dang, like my effort, it took a lot out of me to do this. So I do want it to be recognized. It doesn't mean it has to be recognized with like a gift or whatever. It can be recognized like, hey, I see you do this, I appreciate this. And also doing that in a timely manner. I feel like it's kind of whack to like do something and then wait weeks and then like, hey, I remember last week you did this for me, I appreciate that. To me, it's like, if you know that in the moment, just tell me then. But that's another thing I gotta probably get over. But yeah, when my effort is not appreciated,
Yeah.
I think that's when I feel unsafe for sure.
Where do y'all think that comes from? Specifically for black men, if they feel like their effort is unappreciated or they're not being seen in their relationship, like where does that come from?
I think that maybe comes from like the expectation of certain things. Like there might be an expectation that certain things should always be taking place and this should be happening. And from like maybe from Linjo's standpoint, you know, the effort that one has to put into a relationship is obviously it's a two-way street. So if a black man is doing so much to make something thrive and be successful, yet it's not appreciated maybe in the way that it should be, it's due to the fact that, you know, there's this expectation that that's what should be going on. And therefore the appreciation that would normally take place for something that is not expected is there. So I think that that's probably a strong reasoning why a lot of that conversation takes place, because I think that in some capacity, there's just this expectation of things that we should be doing or things that we know we have to do. And when it's being done, even if it's exceedingly and abundantly, it's like, well, this is that's required. That's just what you should be doing. So I think that's what it is for me.
Being taken for granted in that way. Like
most definitely.
Okay. I asked because I was having a similar conversation with one of my homies, Phil Roundtree, who's a recurring guest on the podcast. And he was basically kind of explaining it from the logo was covering my face. He was basically explaining it from the angle of, you know, black men oftentimes like seek that validation or like need to feel appreciated in their relationships because we go out into the world where we're not appreciated by society. We go out into the world where, you know, we have to fight for our stance amongst like white America. We have to fight for our identity and who we are. And like to have to fight for that in our homes, like that's pretty much a slap in the face. So I just wanted to share that perspective and just to kind of see where y'all stood on that.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? That reminds me of a conversation with, I feel terrible forgetting he's a famous
James Baldwin.
Yes.
Yeah.
James Baldwin, and the other lady's name was like Gia. I won't say her name wrong, but it was an interview where she shared those same sentiments, but it was in reverse. But like, you know, why can't the black man keep the same facade in the house instead of having to bear the blunt of all the frustration you built up when you go outside? Right. And I think it happens here in the reverse, where it's like, you know, I want my effort that I put in, whether it's outside or particularly between us, I want it to be recognized, because that recognition is almost like, you know, as a kid in school, when you get a gold star for doing your homework, you want to do it again. It's almost like that kind of reward system mentality where it's like, dang, like I'm getting fulfilled by serving you. Let me know I'm doing a good job and I'll keep doing it. You know what I'm saying? That's it's like the baseline level of thinking for me. But yeah.
No, I agree with perspective too. I agree with the gentleman that you referenced. You know, I think that, like you said, it's kind of funny. Like, you know, for everything that I guess, you know, as black men we could say we feel and the feelings and thoughts that we have, it comes both ways. As I'm sure it comes both ways as a black woman, as far as some of the thoughts and feelings y'all have towards black men. And so again, it just comes down to like the dialogue and the willingness to like express these things with one another with the desired outcome of like truly understanding and trying to facilitate growth with each other, as opposed to like, because I feel like sometimes, again, we get into this space where it's like, let's pick a struggle between black men and black women. We're like, well, I got it bad. Well, you ain't got it bad. It's kind of like, you know, it's like we can't coexist without each other. And we know that in order to like, you know, build the future that everybody claims that they want to see, it's like we need each other. And so, you know, it's just it's Linjo referencing the James Baldwin and you referencing the gentleman that you did. The perspectives are fairly interesting.
And go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say for sure. I think my last point with this was like, with the conversation between black men and black women, I feel like black men, we have to do a better job of going into conversations with a solution-oriented mindset. I'm going to go into this conflict or this quote unquote argument or discussion, trying to come out of it with a solution. Kind of being able to flow like water and just accept what the other person has to say, even if you don't agree, just accept it. Even me, I have a terrible job doing this, but having to accept it and then say, okay, what can I do to mend these wrongs, and we can collaborate and figure out a way we can move forward. But most times, like, I'm coming with this anger, you come with this anger, and we're going to butt heads for however long until we're done with each other and then move on. And I think that has to stop.
For sure. And Eris, you're not off the hook. You didn't answer my question.
What was your question?
So what does making a Black man feel unsafe, what does that look like?
I was pondering on that. I was pondering on that, and okay. I have to say that, like, Lenjo gave probably the right answer, like, to that, like, in all honesty. So he says when it's underappreciated. I would say when it's misunderstood. I would say it could be the definition, like, for me, could be when it's misunderstood. So, like, there's sacrifices that are being made in different respects, and so the conversation around certain behaviors that you may do. I don't know if it's even like sacrificing time spent with a person per se, or maybe going without a period of time of talking to a person 24/7 and actually handling business to put yourself and facilitate an opportunity to, have a better relationship or lifestyle with said person. I think those things can come into play too. So I think, again, like, whether it's being misunderstood or underappreciated, it kind of falls in the same boat as far as that will make you feel unsafe, because it's like, what I'm currently doing is not going to be enough. Like, there's always going to be that's good and all, and it's just kind of like, if we're, again, you need somebody that has to be on that wavelength with you, can understand your patterns of not just your thought, but your behavior. And again, I do think that that's the difference when you find somebody that you really interested in, or that you really are feeling. Sure. I don't feel like that's a forced thing. I feel like that's just it's I feel like it's like with meditation or anything else. So when you in your groove doing your thing, it's just a flow. Like, you get me, I get you. We don't have to, certain things we don't have to talk about. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you understand where I'm coming from. What I'm doing is in the best interest for us. So what we talking about. So I would say that for me, for misunderstood. And I would just piggyback off of what Lenjo said as far as like the conversations with specifically Black men and Black women. To your point, Lenjo, it's about everybody being empathetic, right? But empathetic and empathy does not equal agreement. It means I accept what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I feel what you're saying. That doesn't mean I'm going to change the perspective that I have now that you have expressed yourself to me. It just means that I sincerely understand where you're coming from. And I not only understand, but I respect it. But it doesn't mean that it's going to change anything up. And I think people have to, like, be okay with that. Like, that's just what it is. Like, it's like, okay, that's the end of that conversation. We don't have to keep digging. It's like, there's not going to be anything else to be done there. So I would just say that's a major thing. Empathy does not equal agreement. And I think a lot of people.
Fire point, bro. That's a fire point. I'm going to put it on paper, dog.
That's another episode. Like,
empathy does not equal accept. I'm writing it down for sure. Bro, that was hot. That was fire. I like that. That
for real, because a lot of times, like, especially in relationships, whether it's like a romantic, platonic, parent-child relationship, we assume that person has to agree with us in order for us to be on the same page.
Yeah, I used to be like that. I used to break up with people if they was like, if we ain't get on the same page, I was like, man, it's a wrap. Like, the minute we got into something, like,
man, that's crazy you say that, bro. You know what? That might be my issue, Slim. My issue is that I never took the time to think, like, damn, empathy is not equal acceptance. I always thought, we're not on the same page. Like you said, we're not on the same page. We're not going the same route. It's over with. Like, you're just a deterrence in my life. Like, damn. That's crazy. It's crazy. That's crazy you said that, bro.
Yeah, I used to be like that, but I realized, I said, I done met so many people that don't agree with a lot of things, that the way, because the thing, I don't think people think that, again, if you don't think the way someone else thinks, that's people to be like, oh, that we don't, like you said, we don't belong together or whatever. But it's like, now, they're granted, there are hard everyone has hard boundaries or hard nose, where it's like, if you think like this, is like I can't date nobody that's an atheist. I can't do it. I'm like, you just out here at this point. I can't do it personally. That's just, listen, I roll with God. However, but again, the small things that you don't agree on, that doesn't mean that you can't work through them. Again, it's just about the conversation and the dialogue. And that's what I always tell people. People will be trying to talk my head off. I've had plenty of situations, people try to convince me and something. I'm like, look, I got you. I appreciate your stance. We good, but you ain't about to change my mind. Because that's what one thing people always say about me, you stubborn. It's like, I just feel what I feel. Why you just can't respect what I'm respecting your opinion? Why you just can't respect mine? If we just, just
that's big, bro. That's big.
And that comes from a place of arrogance too. Like if I go into a conversation expecting to change somebody else's mind or expecting us to, like, if we're not on the same page, my bad. If we're not on the same page, like I'm done with the relationship, like that's low-key arrogant.
That is a fact.
Arrogant and low-key what society tells us. Like there's so many movements. I don't even want to get into I don't want to get into specifics, but there's so many movements and stuff that will specifically tell you if you don't, I could be empathetic to whatever your plight is, but if I don't agree with it, again, I don't have to do this. And again, the other part is learning too. Not everything that I feel I have to express. I don't have to express everything. And that's the part of being self-aware. That's a part of going back to Black masculinity or masculinity in general. It's like, I could feel something and understand that there's again, going to Lenjo's point, I can use discretion to understand. I don't have to express that. What purpose is it serving? If it's not serving the purpose intended to advance the situation, I don't have to express that. And it's like, all of these things are like, again, we don't come out the womb having learned this unless sometimes you're blessed enough to have a father that's, in the household that you can learn these things from, that's actually teaching you that. So these are like life experiences. There's some stuff that you done had to learn like buku times, and you done look back and you like, damn, man, I keep learning. What am I doing? Like, this is the same stuff. And that's one thing about God. He'll give you the same lesson over and over and over and over again. Even if you pass it one time, he like, all right, I got you. So you passed it this way. I'm gonna send it to you in a different package. It's like somebody giving you UPS or FedEx. You like, oh, I was looking for UPS again. God like, nah, homie, this FedEx this time. What you looking for? What's going on? What you got? So it's just the same thing.
Nah, yeah, hey, bro, you're making great points, man. I think right now you're going for 40. I love what I'm hearing right now from you, dog. I love it. I'm loving it, bro. I'm loving it, man. It's good stuff.
Hey, man, I feel like life is the best teacher, man.
I'm telling you, bro. Life is such a wonderful, crazy balance, man. You need to take a step back and think about, like, we have the opportunity, people that are fortunate enough to keep going on, but every day we have a chance to learn and to improve and to apply something that we learned from before. I think when you go into every day with that kind of mentality, your outcomes will definitely yield positively. And I think, a lot of people go into think like, dang, I gotta go to work, I gotta do this. Instead of saying, I get to go to work, or I get to do this, or even saying, I get to have a partner, I get to have someone to talk to, when you switch those small minor things, man, things can take off for you, man. So I think that applies definitely to Black men too, for sure.
Listen, I think that's the perfect place for us to let the people kind of simmer and marinate on this revelation that they received. Take the notes, make sure you guys are running this back and replaying it, sending it to everybody that you know, because I promise you, we probably touched on something that you or a loved one has experienced before. Fellas, let the people know where they can find you.
Yes, we are on Instagram, Twitter at TLAR_podcast. We will also stream on all podcast platforms, Apple Pod, Spotify, Google Pod, etc. We also have some of our clips on YouTube as well. If you want to catch something that's really fast, so definitely give us a shout, a follow, tap in and give us your opinion. We'd love to comment back to people and create more dialogue. So thank you for having us, man. We really appreciate it, for sure.
Yes, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Like Lenjo said, man, tap in with us. We're going to be frank with y'all on this show. We have not been posting in a while. However, we are going to be right back on the ball. Life comes at you. A lot of work changes and things of that nature. But After a conversation like this, this has really got the podcast juices flowing.
Telling you, bro, it's flowing.
Lindsay was over there taking notes.
Empathy does not equal. That right there is a bar. A bar right there, bro.
I would just say, people, man, listen, for all the fellas out there, I encourage you to read as well. Pick you up some books, man. Listen, I go to Barnes and Nobles, try to find me a book every month. I think that's crucial because I think it opens your mind to a lot of different things. So I encourage y'all to do that. But please check us out. Please, stay safe and stay encouraged out here, man, because we can all need it.
Facts.
Yes. Y'all fellas were so cool today. When y'all coming back?
You let us.
We come back tomorrow. As long
as the door is open, we will always come when we invited. We will always come when we are invited.
Let's do it. Next time we gotta get in the studio though. I know we was trying to schedule that, and we gotta make it happen though. Yeah, definitely appreciate y'all. Make sure that y'all connect with them at the LA Report podcast with my friends Lenjo and Aris. And don't forget, as you are listening, whether you're listening to the audio version or on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and wherever else we stream, I want you to like, I want you to comment, I want you to share, I want you to rate it and review it because like I said, I promise you this information is going to bless your life. And remember, don't forget, you have the power to create the emotions that you want to experience. All right, y'all, God bless, and I will catch y'all next Wednesday. Bye.